All right, good day, everybody. This is Etienne Marcel Pertut, and welcome to another edition of Fighting Peaches. In this edition of the show, we're going to be speaking exclusively with Georgia Southern head coach Clay Helton from our time at the Sun Belt Media Days earlier this summer in New Orleans. We're ready to catch up with Coach about this upcoming season and just other thoughts about everything going with the Eagles program. As always, to follow everything that we do, head to the mothership, the sportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can also head to our social media platforms on Twitter/X, Instagram, and Facebook under Etienne Marceau of the Sports Inquirer. And finally, make sure you like and share our audio and video hosts, which include YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and more. As I mentioned, I was in New Orleans, Louisiana earlier this summer, speaking with Georgia Southern football head coach Clay Helton about this upcoming season and many more topics. Enjoy. Georgia Southern football, Clay Helton, fourth season. I think the last time I was at Media Day, it was a few years ago. I think it was your first or second season, and it was a lot about acclimating and adjusting to Georgia Southern. I know you said you had family from the Southeast, so that was a help. But you're a veteran now at Statesboro. How is it now that you're 4 years in? You've had a full recruiting cycle now of guys coming in and out. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think that's why I'm so excited about this season is, we came in with a plan to be able to recruit high school players and develop them. Because of the trust and relationships we've built with them, we haven't had a lot of attrition. And so I look around the locker room and it's third, fourth, fifth year players that have grown up, knowing our standards, knowing our expectations, and knowing our way of life. And to be able to have that type of leadership and them knowing exactly what we expect goes a long way. And I think that's why I'm so excited about this group is, they know what we expect. They know, how to win big games. They've done that over their careers here. And now they're ready to take the next step. We finished second in the East, one play out, which is a pit in our stomach right now. And they're a hungry football team. And I've always thought hungry football teams play better.
How have you been able to keep that retention? You mentioned keeping a lot of guys, including some of the guys you've brought in for a media day. We'll get to them in a moment. But how important is retention in the college game? Because it's like you spend years bringing 18-year-olds, and it's like, we got them, cool. And then it's like it seems like you're recruiting. It's like re-recruiting them every year. But you've been able to seem to do a pretty solid job of that. How have you been able to do it?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I think it's about trust and relationships, and we've got a great product at Georgia Southern. We've stuck close to home. We recruit the state of Georgia. 81 high school kids signed. 59 of them, are from the state of Georgia. The rest are from the attached states of Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina. So these kids wanted to come to Georgia Southern. They know the product. It's a proud school, 6 national championships. So they know what they were coming to, and wanted to be there. And so to be able to show not only the trust and relationship, but the resources that our administration has given and the product that Georgia Southern is, it's made it easier. You always got to recruit your guys each and every year. That's part of the game. But we've been able to do that very successfully. And I think with the consistency of coaching, a head coach going into his 4th year, same offensive system 4 years in a row, same defensive system 3 years in a row, same special team system 4 years in a row. That helps kids. That provides some confidence going into the season.
Yeah, we're based in Metro Atlanta, so we've seen JC from Wesleyan, and then he made that big move to Blessed Trinity. So big in classification and had some solid moments there. Went to Memphis, and then he's now back in the home state. Just what about his development? How valuable it is to have a quarterback, coming back for you, and that process of bringing a Georgia player back into the state and how that went.
Yeah, if you remember, I got hired November 2nd. So
Mhm.
that's very unusual to have about 3 weeks worth of the season still left to play and, having the opportunity to jumpstart some recruiting. And JC was the first call I made. I believe you always start with your quarterback. And it didn't have enough time during that time between there and signing day. He was deep involved with Memphis, but had the opportunity once he went back in the portal to regain that relationship. and bring him to Statesboro. And I've watched him grow over the last 3 years. He got the opportunity to see what we can do with a Kyle Van Treese, a Davis Brin, two top 10 passing offenses. He wanted to be a part of that, and he grew within that and grew and learned how to be a leader from those guys. And now he got the opportunity last year, and to go 6-2 in the league, this league in your first year is not the easiest thing to do. And so, I think that's why there's a lot of excitement around our place to return your quarterback. My dad has always taught me, who's a longtime NFL college coach, who's trained and untrained. When you have a trained player that knows what you expect, that goes a long way.
Interesting schedule overall. You started California 2 games, including your return to USC, and then you also host Georgia State, that big rivalry. Just what about the schedule and just the landscape of it? And obviously, you have all these other teams in the East you're going to compete with. So it's a very challenging schedule overall for you.
Yeah, you look at the first 3 games. We've never been to California as a school, so to go out to California not once but twice, and have the opportunity to play Fresno State and then USC. What great 2 programs! I mean, Fresno State is like us. They have a long tradition of history of being successful, winning championships, and then get the honor to go to the Coliseum and play a great team like USC, and then come home and play a conference champion in Jacksonville State. That's not the easiest 3 games to start off with, but I look at it as an opportunity to build our football team for conference, because when you play those type of quality teams, you're preparing yourself for this league. A league that's had 27 bowl teams, in the last 3 years. That's the most of any group of 6 school. 11, Power 4 wins. That's the most. So you're looking at a conference that you have to be able to prepare for, and I believe we're doing that. We're playing the quality of teams like a Fresno State, a USC, a Jacksonville State in those opening games.
Yeah, and circling back to the Georgia State matchup, the battle, whatever you want to call it, the state not Southern, Southern not state, and all of that. You've been a few years in it now. What's that rivalry like for you in the state? Because I'm sure a lot of these players are, even with the transfer portal, I'm still the Georgia prep players crossing paths with each other, and I'm sure you're recruiting against for the same players. What's that like for you?
Yeah, having been on the West Coast for 12 years and then coming to this conference, until you step foot into that game, you immediately realize how important it is to both fan bases, and how special it is. I got that in year 1, saying, wow, this is a special game. And now to have the opportunity to compete against a great coach like Dell, who's a friend I got a ton of respect for. He's doing a great job there. It's just going to get harder and harder, that game is. And, we were fortunate enough to come up to Atlanta last year and get a big win for our season. But you can tell what Dell's doing there. And it's just going to get better and better, and that game's going to become more of a rivalry each and every year. It'll be even more of a battle each and every year.
Yeah, I love it. We're once again with the Coach Clay Helton from Georgia Southern Football. Wrap up with a few questions here.
Mm-hmm.
You may have touched on it already, but favorite stadium that you've coached in, obviously besides your current home at Georgia Southern.
Well, I will say this. I've been a part of 2 programs now as a head coach that I've been so fortunate to coach in both stadiums. And when you talk about Paulson Stadium, I think it's one of our strengths right now is to play at Paulson. It's the prettiest little stadium in the world. That's what it's called. Prettiest little stadium in the country. And it is one of those stadiums that brings an immense fan base and has the passion. There may be bigger stadiums in the country, but the passion. I got to play in the SEC coming out of high school. It's the same passion as the SEC week in and week out. Stands are always full. The tailgating experience, the amount of passion from our students is incredible. They take up the entire bottom section of the opposing sideline, which is incredible to me. But that's a special place to play. And I got the opportunity to play at USC in the Coliseum, which is a place of history, which we get to play in the second game. You talk about a place that, has had Super Bowls, has had World Series, Olympics.
Yeah.
The Pope has blessed Mass there. The President has addressed the nation from there. Yeah. It's a place of history, And so when you're talking about 2 stadiums that have had 11 national championships at USC, 6 national championships, at Georgia Southern Paulson, those are probably the 2. Those are probably, and I know I worked at both, but they were just unbelievable special venues, both of them. You know, when you're talking about two different leagues, and I have enjoyed both of them. Those are the places I love.
Of course. Favorite recruit that you were able to sign, and it doesn't have to be just. It could be a lower rated guy that turned really big, or maybe a funny anecdote or story that maybe you worked on since like 8th grade and you finally got him. A favorite recruit that you've been able to get.
Probably the one that I remember the most was being at the University of Memphis with D'Angelo Williams, who was a great running back in college football, first round draft pick to the Carolina Panthers. But he changed the University of Memphis football. It had been 32 years without a bowl opportunity for University of Memphis. Uh, Coach West was the head coach at that time, and I remember I was a running back coach at that time with Randy Fietner, who's a great coach in his own right, longtime NFL coordinator with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're sitting there as two young coaches, and we're trying to recruit an unbelievable talent in D'Angelo Williams that was supposed to go to Arkansas and chose to be a part of our program and to jumpstart that program. And he really, you know, in my opinion, has made Memphis what it is today.
Oh,
He
agreed. I
really
remember.
he changed the entire history of that program, took us to 4 straight bowl games, decided not to go to the NFL after year 3, came back for year
Yeah.
4, and truly was a foundation that he laid for that program. And if people remember, it took us 18 days after signing day to
Oh.
finally get him
Oh,
signed.
okay. Yeah, so I'm sure we had more time. I'm sure we can get into what
Yeah.
those 18 days
Yeah.
were like. But maybe the best high school player that you saw in person, or one or two.
Oh gosh, you know, I got to coach a guy named Adoree Jackson,
Okay.
who won the Thorpe Award at USC, who is still playing in the NFL today. He's with the Eagles now. I had just never gotten an opportunity to see a guy that could do it all. You know, he's one of the few guys that I remember being in a Notre Dame game against Notre Dame. He had an interception for a touchdown, caught a pass for a touchdown, and returned a kick for a touchdown. And he was just truly one of the most special players I had ever seen. The ability, you know, the Travis Hunters of the world that can play at such a high level on both sides of the ball. Adoree was that, and that's been the only guy that I've really been a part of in my 30 years, be able to see it done in 3 phases live.
What's been one thing you'd like to see improved, or even things that can be a little bit better in college football, changed or just improved on? Maybe it's just okay, but you just want to see it done better.
Yeah, you know, I think probably the biggest thing for us moving forward, and you know, having done it, this is my 31st year of college football coaching. You know, I've learned that you know, not only coaches but head coaches especially have to adapt with the times. They don't pay us to make excuses; they pay us to have answers. And you know, I think one of the things that as we change in this landscape of transfer portals, of revenue share, is getting our calendar where it fits, you know, the new landscape. And, you know, I truly believe that right now we are in the entertainment business, and one of our most valuable commodities is postseason play. And I think that it's going to be very important to protect our postseason opportunities, you know, not only with bowl games, but trying to be the 12th team in the playoff. And to be able to do that is to try to get our calendar where it marries up with the transfer portal window or windows, whatever they decide. I think that's the next big topic to make sure that we have kids for the entire season and postseason. So we put the best product out there for the fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, what's the best coaching advice that you received that you've been able to maybe pass on over to your players that you have now?
Yeah, I said earlier, my dad has taught me a lot. You know, you're talking about a 40-year NFL and college coach. He still coaches me today, but he taught me how important trust and relationships are in this profession. That it's not all about X's and O's and schemes, but it's about building relationships with the players. That you can coach them really hard, but you need to love them really hard, and especially off the field. You know, you're dealing with 18-year-olds that are going from 18 to 22, there's still so much growth that they have, and you got to be a part of that growth and build that relationship and help mentor them, along the way. And so that lesson has really built stronger relationships for me with our football teams or the teams that I've had, and I believe you have to have a care and concern for them off the field.
All right, Coach Helton, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Good luck this season.
Thank you. Take care.
And that was Coach Helton speaking with us. We really appreciate the time he gave us in New Orleans during the Sun Belt Media Days discussing the Georgia Southern Eagles. Once again, thank you for watching or listening to this latest edition of the Fighting Peaches. As always, to follow everything that we do, head to the mothership, to sportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can also go to our social media platforms on Twitter/X, Instagram, and Facebook, and make sure you follow us on there. And finally, make sure you follow, like, and share on our audio and video hosts, which include YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and more. Until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.